My grandson turned 20, and his mother decided I wasn't worth a seat at the table. My son sent me a text like I was hired help. "Clean up. We'll be back late with guests." That's when I realized I'd been living in someone else's house for 8 years, pretending it was still home. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The text came at 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon. I was folding Marcus's laundry. Yes, at 67, I was still doing my grown son's washing because Jennifer claimed she was too busy with Tyler's college preparations. The irony wasn't lost on me that Tyler was apparently too busy celebrating his 20th birthday to include the grandmother who'd helped raise him. "Mom, taking everyone to Shayan for Tyler's birthday. Clean up. We'll be back late with guests. Thanks." Thanks. Like I was the cleaning lady. I stared at that message for a full 5 minutes, sitting on the edge of my bed in what used to be my bedroom, before Jennifer decided it would make a better guest room. I'd been sleeping in the basement guest room for 2 years now, ever since Jennifer's mother started visiting for weeks at a time. Chat Laurent, the restaurant where Marcus proposed to Jennifer 20 years ago, the place where we'd celebrated every major milestone in Tyler's life: his high school graduation, his acceptance to Ohio State, his first job, every milestone except this one, apparently. I walked to my small basement window and looked up at ground level, watching the neighbors' cats prowl through my former garden. Jennifer had torn out my roses last spring, said they were too much maintenance. She replaced them with decorative rocks. Very modern, she said. Very convenient. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Tyler texting from upstairs. "Sorry, Grandma. Mom made plans weeks ago and forgot to mention it. Rain check." Rain check. Like spending time with me was a tennis match we could reschedule when the weather improved. I climbed the basement stairs to the main floor of the house that had been mine for 25 years. The house where I'd raised Marcus after his father, Robert, died of cancer when Marcus was 14. The house I'd let them move into temporarily when Tyler was 4 and they were going through a rough patch. The house that somehow became theirs, while I became the inconvenient relative sleeping in the basement. The living room smelled like Jennifer's vanilla candles and her expensive perfume. My old furniture had been relegated to the basement, replaced with her stark white couches that no one was allowed to eat on. The family photos on the mantel were all from her side now. The only picture with me in it was from Marcus's wedding, barely visible in the background. I heard Marcus's BMW pull into the driveway, my driveway, legally speaking, though I'd stopped mentioning that years ago. Through the window, I watched them pile out, laughing and animated. Marcus in his best suit, Jennifer in a dress that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check, Tyler looking handsome and happy. They were beautiful together, my family, beautiful and complete without me. They didn't even glance toward the house as they switched to Jennifer's SUV and headed to a celebration I'd helped plan for 19 years before this one. I stood at that window until their taillights disappeared around the corner, and something inside me shifted. Something that had been cracking for years finally broke clean through. I walked to my basement room and pulled out the suitcase I hadn't used since my last visit to my sister in Phoenix. Then I stopped, struck by a thought that made me smile for the first time in weeks. They wanted me to clean up. I would give them exactly what they asked for. The beauty of being invisible for 8 years is that you learn everyone's patterns without them noticing yours. Marcus would drink too much at fancy dinners. He always did when he was trying to impress Jennifer's friends. Jennifer would insist they bring people back to show off their renovated house. Tyler would go along with whatever they suggested because confrontation wasn't worth the drama. They'd be gone until at least midnight, maybe later. plenty of time for what I needed to do. I'd been saving money for 3 years, ever since I realized my welcome had expired. Robert's life insurance paid off the house when he died, and I'd been careful with the small inheritance from my mother 2 years ago. While Marcus assumed I was living on Social Security alone, I quietly tucked away money every month, $4,200 in cash, enough for a new start if I was careful. I started with my clothes, folding everything neatly into 2 suitcases. 8 years of living in one room teaches you to pack efficiently. My photo albums went into a small box along with my mother's jewelry and the few pieces of my grandmother's china that Jennifer hadn't accidentally broken or donated. In the back of my closet, behind the winter coats I rarely needed anymore, I found the box I'd been avoiding for months. Robert's things, his watch, his reading glasses, the leather journal where he kept notes for his woodworking projects. I'd moved that box from hiding place to hiding place, unable to let go but unwilling to display the contents where Jennifer might decide they didn't fit her aesthetic. I held Robert's journal for a moment, remembering how he'd sit at the kitchen table every evening, updating his project notes in careful handwriting. He'd been so methodical, so practical. What would he think of what I'd become? What would he think of what I was about to do? "You'd tell me it was about time," I whispered to the empty room. The hardest part was the kitchen. I'd been cooking for this family for 8 years, keeping track of everyone's preferences, making sure Tyler had his favorite cookies for school, preparing Marcus's lunches exactly how he liked them. The spice rack was mine, accumulated over decades. The good knives were wedding gifts from my marriage to Robert. I packed them all. Jennifer could figure out how to cook for her own family, or they could order takeout with the money they were saving by not having to support me anymore. Not that they'd been doing much of that anyway. By 9 o'clock, I had everything important loaded into my car. The rest, furniture that no longer fit, books boxed up in the basement, Christmas decorations I wasn't allowed to use, could stay. Let them deal with it. I sat down at the kitchen table one last time and wrote a note. "Marcus and Jennifer, I've decided to make some changes. The cleaning is done as requested. Don't worry about me. I'm exactly where I need to be. Eleanor." I almost signed it Mom out of habit, then decided against it. Mothers get invitations to their grandchildren's birthday celebrations. Cleaning ladies get dismissive text messages. I left the note propped against the salt shaker Robert made in his workshop, the one Jennifer always said was too rustic. Then I walked through the house one last time, turning off lights, making sure the doors were locked. My phone buzzed as I loaded the last box into my trunk. A text from my sister Rose in Phoenix. "How's the birthday party?" "Plans changed," I typed back. "I'll call you tomorrow." At 10:47 p.m., I pulled out of the driveway and headed toward the highway, leaving behind 25 years of memories and 8 years of slowly disappearing. I didn't look back at the house. Some doors, once you close them, should stay that way. The interstate was quiet, just long-haul truckers and night shift workers heading to jobs that start before dawn. I had no destination in mind, just a need to drive until I figured out where I belonged. The radio played soft jazz, and for the first time in years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten: freedom. Behind me, my family was probably raising toasts to Tyler's future, completely unaware that I had just reclaimed mine. I drove for 4 hours before exhaustion forced me to stop at a truck stop outside Cincinnati. The place was brightly lit and surprisingly busy at 3 in the morning, filled with drivers grabbing coffee and gas station sandwiches. I felt invisible again, but this time it was liberating, not lonely. The teenage clerk at the counter looked like Tyler might in a few years, Same dark hair, same easy smile. When he handed me my coffee, he said, "Drive safe, ma'am. Crazy night to be on the road alone." "Sometimes crazy is exactly what you need," I told him. I found a quiet corner table and pulled out my phone. 17 missed calls from Marcus, 12 from Jennifer, and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. The progression was predictable: confusion, then anger, then panic, then bargaining. 11:43 p.m. "Mom, where are you? Your car's gone." 12:15 a.m. "This isn't funny. Call me back right now." 1:22 a.m. "Mom, we're worried. Please, just let us know you're safe." 2:35 a.m. "Whatever we did, we can fix it. Just come home. Home." Interesting how that word appeared only after I was gone. I turned off my phone without responding. They could worry for a while. Maybe worry would teach them something that 8 years of taking me for granted hadn't. The truck stop had a rack of travel brochures: Mammoth Cave, Dollywood, the Great Smoky Mountains, places I'd wanted to visit when Robert was alive, trips we always planned for someday, before cancer stole our some days. I grabbed a handful and spread them on the table like tarot cards. A woman at the next table watched me with curiosity. She looked about my age, silver hair pulled back in a practical bun, wearing a University of Kentucky sweatshirt. "Running away from home?" she asked, smiling like she'd done the same once or twice. "More like running towards something," I said. "I'm just not sure what yet." She introduced herself as Margaret Coleman, a retired teacher driving back to Louisville after visiting her daughter in Atlanta. "Worst mistake I ever made," she said, "was moving in with my kids after my husband died. Took me 2 years to get my life back." We talked until sunrise, two women who'd forgotten we existed outside our roles as mothers and grandmothers. Margaret told me about the apartment she found in Louisville's Highlands neighborhood, close to coffee shops and bookstores, the kind of life she'd wanted at 20, but hadn't dared to pursue. "The hardest part," she said as we prepared to leave, "isn't starting over. It's forgiving yourself for waiting so long to do it." She gave me her number and made me promise to call when I figured out where I was headed. "Women our age have to stick together," she said. "The world tries to convince us we're invisible after 60. It's up to us to prove them wrong." I spent the morning driving through Kentucky's rolling hills, thinking about visibility and invisibility, about the difference between being needed and being wanted. By noon, I'd made my decision. I stopped at a bank in Lexington and opened a new checking account with the money I'd saved. Then I found a real estate office and started looking at rentals. Nothing fancy, just a 1-bedroom where I could think clearly without the weight of other people's expectations pressing down on me. The realtor, Beth, was cheerful and blessedly discreet. She showed me 3 places before we found the right one: a small apartment above a bakery on Main Street with hardwood floors and windows that faced east into the morning sun. "The baker downstairs makes the best cinnamon rolls in Lexington," Beth said, as I signed the lease. "Fair warning, the smell will ruin you for grocery store pastries forever." I paid first month's rent and a security deposit in cash, the money I'd saved while pretending to be grateful for room and board in my own house. The apartment wouldn't be available until the weekend, so I checked into a nearby hotel for the rest of the week. That evening, I finally turned my phone back on. 43 missed calls, dozens of texts, and 3 voicemails from Marcus that progressed from angry to desperate. The last message, left at 2 a.m., was different. "Mom, I know you're angry about the birthday dinner. I should have made sure you were invited. We should have invited you. Please call me back. I'm scared something happened to you." For a moment I wavered. He sounded like the little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, the teenager who cried in my arms when his father died. But then I remembered that text message, the casual dismissal, and the 8 years of slowly erasing me from my own life. I typed a single response: "I'm safe. Don't look for me." Then I turned off the phone and fell asleep in my first bed, that was truly mine in nearly a decade, dreaming of cinnamon rolls, morning sunshine, and the radical act of choosing myself for once. Marcus found me through old-fashioned detective work and sheer determination. I discovered this when Claire, the bakery owner, knocked on my apartment door Friday morning with a concerned expression and a fresh croissant. "Eleanor, there's a man downstairs asking about you. Says he's your son. He's been calling every hotel and rental office in Lexington since yesterday, showing your picture around." I sighed, accepting the croissant and the inevitable. I'd had 5 peaceful days to settle in, 5 days of morning coffee without interference, evenings spent reading in my new chair by the window. It had been lovely while it lasted. "Tell him I'll be down in 10 minutes, I said. Marcus was pacing in front of the bakery when I came downstairs, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usually neat hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, shadows under his eyes. When he saw me, his expression cycled rapidly through relief, anger, and something that might have been genuine remorse. "Mom." He stopped pacing and just looked at me, like he was seeing me for the first time in years. "You look good." I did look good, actually. 5 days of sleeping in my own bed, eating when I was hungry instead of when dinner was scheduled, making my own choices. It had already started to show. I was wearing the blue sweater I bought for myself last Christmas but never wore, because Jennifer said the color was too bold for someone my age. "Thank you," I said. "You look tired." I've been driving around Kentucky for 2 days, stopping at every town between here and Cincinnati, asking if anyone's seen you. He ran a hand through his hair. "Do you have any idea how many small towns there are in this state?" "I imagine you do now," I said mildly. "Would you like some coffee? Claire makes excellent coffee." We found a table by the window, and I watched Marcus struggle with where to begin. He's always been uncomfortable with emotional conversations. Even as a child, after his father died, I had to teach him that feelings are meant to be expressed, not buried under busy schedules and practical concerns. "Mom," he said finally, "why didn't you tell me you were unhappy?" I stirred cream into my coffee, buying time to frame my answer. "When was the last time you asked how I was doing, Marcus? I mean really asked, when you had time to listen to the answer." He opened his mouth, then closed it. I could see him thinking back, trying to remember any recent conversation that went beyond logistics and schedules. "I ask you all the time," he said, but without conviction. "You ask if I need anything from the store. You ask if I can watch Tyler when you and Jennifer go out. You ask if I can make dinner for company." I took a sip, watching his face. "You don't ask how I feel about living in my own house as a guest." "It's not like that." "Isn't it?" I interrupted gently. "Marcus, whose name is on the deed to that house?" Silence. He stared into his coffee cup as he realized he'd never actually thought about the legal reality of our living situation. "Yours," he admitted quietly. "And whose furniture fills the living room?" "Jennifer's." "Whose bedroom do I sleep in?" "The basement guest room," he whispered. "So help me understand," I said, leaning forward slightly, "how I became a guest in my own home." He went quiet for a long time, processing 8 years of assumptions he'd never examined. When he finally looked up, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "We never meant for it to happen that way," he said. "When we moved in, Tyler was only 4. Jennifer was overwhelmed. I was working 18-hour days trying to get the business off the ground. You just stepped in and took care of everything. You made it look so easy." It wasn't easy, Marcus. It was love. I know that now. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. But somewhere along the way, we started taking that love for granted. We stopped seeing you as a person with your own needs and started seeing you as the help, I supplied. He winced. Yeah, as the help. We sat in silence while he digested the truth. Outside the window, Lexington was coming to life. People walking to work, students heading to campus, normal Friday morning activity in a city that was slowly becoming mine. Mom, Marcus said suddenly, I need you to know Jennifer's been crying for 3 days straight. Not the dramatic crying she does when she wants something. Real crying. She keeps saying she didn't realize. She never meant to push you out of your own life. I considered that. Jennifer's tears could be genuine remorse or strategic manipulation. With her, it was often hard to tell the difference. What does she want from me, Marcus? She wants you to come home. We both do. He leaned forward earnestly. But not the way things were before. We want to make changes. Real changes. Such as, I said softly. He went quiet, struggling to offer specifics rather than vague promises. We could convert the main floor office into a bedroom for you. You shouldn't be in the basement. And Jennifer wants to give you back control of the kitchen. She admits she's a terrible cook, and we've all been eating frozen dinners since you left. He swallowed. And family events, birthdays, holidays, decisions that affect the household. You'll be included in everything, I promise. No more last-minute plans that exclude you. No more treating you like childcare instead of Tyler's grandmother. I finished my coffee while his offer hung in the air. Part of me wanted to believe change was possible, that 8 years of ingrained patterns could be broken with good intentions and effort. But I'd learned something important in my 5 days of independence. I liked making my own choices. I liked eating dinner at 7:30 instead of 6. I liked watching the news without Jennifer sighing about how depressing it was. I liked the quiet. Marcus, I said gently, I appreciate the apology, and I believe you mean it, but I'm not coming back. His face crumpled. Why not? If we make changes, if we treat you the way we should have, because this isn't about punishment, I said. It's about finally living my own life. I reached across the table and took his hand. Son, I'm 67 years old. For 25 years, I was Robert's wife. For 8 years, I've been your live-in babysitter and housekeeper. For the first time in my adult life, I get to just be Eleanor. But we need you, he said, voice cracking like it had when he was 14, and afraid to be alone. You needed who I was to you, I corrected. You needed someone to tend the details so you didn't have to. That person served her purpose. It's time for me to figure out who I am when I'm not taking care of everyone else. He squeezed my hand tightly. Will you at least think about it? Will you consider visiting? I'll think about visits, I said. But Marcus, you need to understand. I'm not coming back to live in your house. This is my home now. After he left, promising to call before driving back to Columbus, I sat in the bakery another hour, watching people come and go. Some looked stressed, some content, some lost. For the first time in years, I looked like someone who knew exactly where she belonged. Jennifer arrived the next morning with Tyler in tow, both wearing the careful expressions of people about to deliver a rehearsed speech. I opened my apartment door to find them in the hallway. Eleanor, Jennifer began, already smoothing her hair. We need to talk. I looked at Tyler, who had the grace to look embarrassed. I asked him to come, Jennifer added quickly. I thought you might be more receptive if Tyler was here. The manipulation was so obvious it was almost insulting. using my grandson as leverage, assuming I couldn't hold a boundary if faced with his disappointed face. "Tyler," I said, "would you mind waiting downstairs while your mother and I talk?" He looked relieved. "Sure, Grandma. I'll grab a coffee." After he left, I invited Jennifer in. She looked around with that appraising stare she used while redecorating my living room, cataloging everything that didn't fit her aesthetic. "It's very cozy," she said, which in Jennifer speak meant small and outdated. "It suits me perfectly," I replied. "Coffee?" She shook her head, perching on my small couch with the posture she used for difficult conversations. Back straight, hands folded, expression carefully neutral. "Eleanor," she said, "I owe you an apology." I waited. Apologies from Jennifer usually arrived with conditions attached. "I realize we've been thoughtless about including you in family decisions. The birthday dinner was inexcusable, and I take full responsibility for that. Oversight." "Oversight," I repeated. "Is that what we're calling it?" Her composure slipped. "I know you're angry." "I'm not angry, Jennifer. I'm done." That caught her off guard. She'd prepared for anger, tears, demands. She hadn't prepared for calm indifference. "You can't be done," she said softly. "We're your family." "Am I?" I sat across from her. "In the 8 years you've lived in my house, how many times have you asked about my day, my interests, my friends? How many times have we had a conversation that wasn't about Tyler's schedule, Marcus's work, or what you needed me to do for the household?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. I watched her sift through 8 years searching for evidence of genuine interest in me as a person. "We've been busy," she said finally, "between work and Tyler and maintaining the house." "You've been busy," I agreed. Too busy to notice I was disappearing. "You weren't disappearing. You were part of everything." "I was useful for everything," I said. "There's a difference." She recalibrated. Jennifer was nothing if not adaptable when she wanted something. "I know I haven't been the daughter-in-law you deserved," she said, and for the first time her voice carried something like real emotion. "I was so focused on building our life, our family, that I forgot you were already family." It was the closest thing to a real apology I'd ever heard from her. "Thank you for saying that," I said. "I appreciate it." "Then come home with us," she said quickly. "Let us make it right. Let us show you we can do better." I looked out my small window at the street below where people were walking dogs and buying newspapers and living their Saturday morning lives. Simple, peaceful, unscheduled. "Jennifer," I said gently, "do you know what I had for breakfast?" She blinked. "I know?" "French toast with strawberries and real maple syrup. I ate at 9:30 because that's when I got hungry, not because someone else decided breakfast should be at 8. Yesterday I read an entire book without being interrupted to discuss dinner plans or laundry or paper towels." "But you love taking care of people," she said, genuinely puzzled. "You're so good at it." "I was good at it," I said. "Past tense. I spent 25 years taking care of Robert, 30 years raising Marcus, and 8 years helping raise Tyler. I've been taking care of other people longer than you've been alive." "So what are you saying?" Her voice trembled, honest pain breaking through. "That you don't want to be part of our lives anymore?" "I want to be part of your lives as Eleanor, not as the woman who handles everything, so you don't have to think about it." Tears welled, careful tears that didn't smudge her makeup. "I don't know how to do that," she admitted. "I don't know how to have a relationship with you that isn't about logistics." "Then maybe," I said softly, "it's time for both of us to learn." We sat in silence while she composed herself. Outside, a young mom jogged beside a toddler on a tricycle, steadying the wobble with one steady hand. Life, unhurried. Will you come to dinner tomorrow? Jennifer asked at last. Just dinner. No expectations, no agenda. Family dinner. I considered it. It'll be a test for all of us. Can you see me as a guest rather than staff? Can I visit without automatically taking over the kitchen? Can we share a meal based on choice, not obligation? I'll come, I said, but I'll drive myself, and I'll leave when I'm ready. She nodded quickly. Of course, whatever you want. She stood, smoothing her skirt. And Eleanor, I understand you won't be moving back. I do. After she and Tyler left, he'd given me a tentative hug and promised to call later. I sat on my little balcony with a cup of tea, thinking about the difference between being needed and being wanted. For the first time in years, I was curious to see which tomorrow's dinner would reveal. Tyler came alone on Sunday afternoon, arriving with grocery bags and a sheepish expression that reminded me of the little boy who used to help me bake cookies while standing on a chair. I brought supplies for chocolate chip cookies, he said. Mom said she'd try to make them, but, well, you know how that goes. I laughed, remembering Jennifer's last attempt at baking, smoke alarms and take-out pizza. Your mother has many talents, I said. Baking isn't one of them. We spent the afternoon in my small kitchen, Tyler carefully following instructions. He was more methodical now, less likely to dump a full cup of flour at once, but he still had that focused concentration he'd had as a child. Grandma, he asked while we waited for the first batch to bake, can I ask you something? Always. When we moved into your house, when I was little, were Mom and Dad getting divorced? The question surprised me. I'd assumed he was too young to remember the tension from that time, the hushed arguments, the way Marcus and Jennifer tiptoed around each other. Why do you ask? He stirred chocolate chips into the remaining dough, not meeting my eyes. I've been thinking about what you said, about not remembering life before we lived with you. I called my friend Jake. His parents divorced in kindergarten, and he said he remembers them fighting a lot before they separated. I remember Mom crying, Dad gone all the time, this feeling that something was wrong but nobody would tell me what. They stayed together, I said carefully, but they were going through something very hard when you were 4. Your dad was working around the clock to keep the business alive. Your mom was overwhelmed and exhausted. They were both scared. So they were considering divorce. They were considering options, I said diplomatically. I remembered those early months, fights stopping when I entered a room, separate bedrooms at first, the relief on both their faces when I offered to help with childcare in the household. Whatever they worked through because they wanted to. I supported them, but I didn't save their marriage. They saved it. He nodded thoughtfully. But you made it easier for them to focus on fixing things instead of just surviving. Maybe. The timer beeped. We moved the cookies to a rack. Tyler immediately reached for one, burning his fingers and making the same face he made at 4. Some things never change, I said, handing him a napkin. Some things shouldn't, he said, but some things should change before it's too late. We were quiet while the second batch baked. When he spoke again, his voice was more serious. Grandma, I need to apologize. For what? For not noticing. For being so wrapped up in my life, college, friends, my girlfriend, that I didn't see what was happening to you. For not calling you directly about my birthday. For not making sure you were included, he swallowed. For letting you disappear in your own house. The pain in his voice was genuine, and my heart cracked a little. Tyler, you were a child when this started. Children aren't responsible for managing adult relationships. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm 20. I should have noticed my grandmother was sleeping in the basement while my girlfriend had sleepovers in what used to be your bedroom. I hadn't known about the sleepovers, and the information stung more than I wanted to admit. But his face was full of real remorse. "What matters," I said, "is that you're noticing now." "Is it too late?" he asked. "Have we damaged things so badly you can't forgive us?" I looked at this young man, Marcus's eyes with Robert's gentleness, old enough to own his choices, young enough to believe love can fix anything. "Forgiveness isn't the issue," I said. "I'm not angry at you. I'm just done being someone I never wanted to be." "What do you mean?" "I don't want to be the grandmother who's always available, always accommodating, always putting everyone else's needs above her own. I want to be the grandmother you choose to visit because you enjoy my company, not because you need something. So, we have to earn back a relationship with you." "You have to build a new relationship with me," I said, "based on who I actually am, not who it's convenient for me to be." After he left, promising to call later in the week just to talk, I sat in my reading chair with the last cookie and thought about second chances. Some people deserve them. Some people make mistakes out of thoughtlessness, not malice. Tyler fell in that category, good-hearted, capable of growth. The question was whether his parents did, or if their patterns were too deeply set. Tomorrow's dinner would be the first test. The invitation came with specific instructions. "Just come as our guest. Don't bring anything. Don't help with cleanup. We want to practice treating you the way we should have all along." Sweet words, but I'd learned to judge Jennifer by actions, not promises. I drove to my former house Sunday evening, parking on the street instead of in the driveway. Small gesture, but important. I was visiting, not coming home. Marcus opened the door wearing an apron with the price tag still attached. Behind him, I smelled something burning and heard Jennifer in the kitchen using words I told Tyler never to say around adults. "Mom," Marcus said, genuinely relieved. Perfect timing. Jennifer's having a small culinary challenge. I followed him into the kitchen where Jennifer stood over the stove, frantically stirring something that looked like wet cement. Her face was flushed, her perfect hair undone, panic in her eyes. "The sauce separated," she announced without looking up, "and I think the roast is dying." Despite everything, I felt the old urge to step in. 8 years of muscle memory don't vanish overnight. I folded my hands and stayed in the doorway. Let's see how they handle their crisis without me. "Maybe we should order pizza," Marcus suggested helplessly. "No." Jennifer's voice was sharp with frustration. "I said I'd cook dinner for Eleanor, and I'm going to cook dinner." Tyler appeared, took one look, and moved to the stove. "Mom, step back. Let me help." I watched as Tyler took charge. He'd learned more from our cooking sessions than I realized. He coaxed the sauce back with patience and butter, rescued the roast, and turned Jennifer's disaster into something resembling dinner. "Where did you learn to do that?" Jennifer asked, amazed. "Grandma taught me," Tyler said simply. "She always says cooking disasters are just chances to practice problem solving." The look Jennifer shot me was unreadable. Embarrassment, gratitude, maybe resentment that her son learned crucial skills from someone she'd been taking for granted. We sat down at 7:30, half an hour late, and no one complained. The food was adequate, the conversation careful and polite, like strangers trying to make a good impression. Marcus asked about my apartment. Jennifer complimented my sweater. Tyler told college stories that didn't require anyone to do anything for him. Pleasant, but artificial. "This feels weird," Tyler said suddenly, saying what we all felt. "We're acting like people who just met." "Maybe that's not a bad thing," I said. "Maybe we need to meet each other as adults instead of assuming we know who everyone is." "But we're family," Marcus protested. "We shouldn't have to get to know each other." Family doesn't mean you automatically understand each other, son. It means you're committed to trying. Jennifer had been quiet, pushing food around her plate. Now she looked up. Eleanor, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happier living alone, making your own decisions, without worrying about anyone else's schedule? The question was surprisingly direct and honest. Yes, I said simply. I am. She nodded slowly. I've been thinking about what you said, about not knowing how to have a relationship with you that isn't about logistics. You're right. I don't know how to be around you without asking you to do something. Then maybe, I suggested gently, we start with just being around each other. After dinner, I kept my promise to myself and didn't help with cleanup. I sat in the living room, my former living room, now decorated entirely to Jennifer's taste, and watched Marcus and Jennifer wash dishes together. They were clumsy, out of practice with shared chores, but they were trying. At 9, I stood to leave. Marcus walked me to my car. Mom, he said, I know tonight was awkward, but will you come back? Maybe next Sunday? I considered the request. The evening had been strained but not unpleasant. They were making a genuine effort, even if they didn't know how to sustain it. I'll come back, I said. But Marcus, understand this. I'm not auditioning to be part of your family again. I'm deciding whether I want to be. He nodded soberly. I understand. And Mom, thank you for giving us a chance to figure this out. Driving back to Lexington, I reflected on the evening. They were trying, but it felt like actors in roles they'd never rehearsed. The question was whether they could keep at it long enough for it to become real. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. Thanks for coming tonight. Sorry if it felt weird. We're all learning how to be different people. Maybe that was the key. Maybe we weren't fixing the old relationships. Maybe we were building new ones. 3 weeks into my new life, independence found its rhythm. Monday morning book club at the library. Tuesday afternoon gardening with my neighbor Harold. Wednesday farmers market. Thursday volunteering at the literacy center. Friday coffee with Margaret, who drove up from Louisville to check on me. A full life, a chosen life, and I was surprised by how little I missed the constant demands of managing other people's schedules. Marcus called every few days, checking in, not asking for anything. Jennifer texted twice, a photo of her successful attempt at my pot roast, and a question about Tyler's upcoming graduation party. Progress, of a sort. Then Tyler called on Thursday evening, his voice tight with something I couldn't place. Grandma, can I come visit this weekend? Not for dinner or anything planned. I need to talk to someone who isn't invested in keeping family peace. Of course, I said at once. What's going on? I'll explain when I get there. But Grandma, I think I understand now why you left. He arrived Friday afternoon carrying a manila folder and the expression of someone who'd discovered uncomfortable truths. I brewed coffee and waited. I've been going through Dad's business files, he said finally, for a school project about family businesses. I thought I'd write about his company, maybe interview him about being an entrepreneur. That sounds nice. It was supposed to be. He opened the folder and pulled out several documents. Grandma, did you know Dad took out a second mortgage on your house 3 years ago? Something cold settled in my stomach. What? A second mortgage, $80,000. Tyler's voice was carefully controlled, but anger simmered underneath. He used your house as collateral for a business loan, without telling you. I stared at the papers in his hands. My address, the legal description of my property, Marcus's signature, not mine. This isn't possible, I said. He can't mortgage my house without my consent. He can if he has power of attorney for your finances. The words hit like a blow. Power of attorney. The document Marcus convinced me to sign 2 years ago. Just in case something happens to you, Mom. I'd signed it so he could access my accounts in an emergency, never imagining he'd borrow against my house. Tyler, I said slowly, how much does your father still owe on that second mortgage? $73,000, plus the original mortgage still has about $60,000 left. I did the math. Marcus owed more than the house was worth. If he defaulted, I could lose the home that had been paid off when Robert died. There's more, Tyler said quietly. He slid out another document. That business loan? It wasn't for expansion, like he told Mom. He used it to pay off their credit cards and to buy Mom's car. They've been living beyond their means for years, using your house like an ATM. I sat back, processing. No wonder Marcus panicked when I left. No wonder Jennifer was desperate to get me back. They weren't worried about my well-being. They were worried about losing their collateral. Tyler, I asked carefully, why are you showing me this? Because you have a right to know your son committed financial fraud against you, and because I'm tired of my parents lying to everyone, including themselves. What are you going to do? He looked out my window at the street, where honest people lived honest lives. I don't know. I love my parents, but what they did to you is unforgivable, and they're still doing it, pretending they're rebuilding a relationship when really they're trying to keep you from finding out they've been stealing from you. I thought about the dinner invitations, the careful apologies, Marcus's check-in calls, all designed to keep me satisfied enough not to look too closely. Grandma, Tyler said, I think you need a lawyer. I think you're right. That evening, after he left, promising to keep our conversation confidential until I decided what to do, I sat with the documents spread across my kitchen table. $80,000 borrowed against my house without my knowledge, used to subsidize their lifestyle while they treated me like staff. I thought I was angry when they excluded me from Tyler's birthday dinner. I thought I was hurt when they made me sleep in the basement of my own house. But this was different. This was theft. My phone rang. Marcus, calling for his regular check-in. Hi, Mom. How was your day? I looked at the papers, evidence of years of deception, and made a decision. Educational, I said calmly. Very educational indeed. Monday morning, I walked into the law office of Patricia Morrison, the attorney Margaret recommended. Patricia was about my age, silver hair, sharp eyes, specializing in elder financial abuse. She reviewed Tyler's documents with professional calm that didn't quite hide her anger. Mrs. Walsh, she said finally, what your son did is financial exploitation. Using power of attorney to mortgage your property without your knowledge or consent is illegal, regardless of the family relationship. What are my options? Several. We can demand immediate repayment. We can revoke the power of attorney and seek to unwind the mortgage. Or we can file criminal charges. The question is what outcome you want. I thought about Marcus at 14, crying in my arms after his father's funeral. The young man who worked 18-hour days to build a business, who married Jennifer in my backyard, who brought Tyler to visit me in the hospital when I had pneumonia. And I thought about 8 years of sleeping in my own basement, 8 years of being treated like staff, and the calculation behind the last few weeks. I want my house back, I said, free and clear, the way it was when Robert died. That will require them to pay off both mortgages immediately. Do they have that kind of liquid capital? I almost laughed. If they had $130,000 just lying around, they wouldn't have needed to steal from me. Patricia nodded. Then they'll likely have to sell the house to pay off the debt and return the net proceeds to you. Are you prepared for that possibility? Was I prepared to force my son and daughter-in-law to sell the home where they raised Tyler? The home built on my equity and my labor? The one they redecorated while I slept in the basement? Yes, I said. I am. We spent the morning preparing documents. Patricia would send Marcus a letter demanding full disclosure of all transactions involving my property, immediate repayment of unauthorized loans, and revocation of the power of attorney agreement. Mrs. Walsh, Patricia warned gently as I stood, this will likely destroy your relationship with your son and daughter-in-law. Financial disputes in families rarely end in reconciliation. The relationship was already destroyed, I said. I just didn't know it yet. I drove home strangely calm. For weeks I'd wondered if I'd been too harsh when I left, if I should have tried harder to fix things from the inside. Now I knew there was never anything for me to fix. The foundation had been rotten for years. My phone rang as I was making lunch. Jennifer's name. Eleanor, hope you don't mind my calling. I wanted to invite you to Tyler's graduation party next month. Just family, nothing elaborate. The audacity. A party at my house, funded by money borrowed against my property, and I was invited as a guest. That sounds lovely, I said pleasantly. Will you be serving food? Oh, yes. We're thinking of having it catered. Marcus found a wonderful company. Very reasonable prices. Reasonable prices, paid with stolen equity. I wondered how long they'd been living this double life, spending beyond their means while presenting themselves as successful professionals. Jennifer, I said, I'm curious about something. The house seems different the last few times I visited. Have you done some remodeling? A pause. Just a few updates. You know how old houses need maintenance. Updates like new kitchen counters? I'd noticed the flooring, the expensive fixtures, paid for apparently with my home. Well, she said, recovering, I'm sure it's all very nice. I'll look forward to seeing it at Tyler's party. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet kitchen and thought about lies and the many ways you can steal from family. They stole my money. But more than that, they stole years of my life, making me complicit in my own exploitation by convincing me I was needed when I was just convenient. A text from Tyler. How did it go with the lawyer? Better than expected, I typed. Your parents will hear from her this week. Are you okay with whatever happens next? I looked around my small apartment, my books on shelves I chose, my mug on the table I bought, my life arranged exactly as I wanted it. I typed, I'm exactly where I need to be. Patricia's letter arrived Wednesday morning. I know because Marcus called at 7:23 a.m., his voice shaking. Mom, what the hell is this letter? You're accusing me of financial fraud. You're threatening to have me arrested. I'm not threatening anything, Marcus. I'm asking for an accounting of what you've done with my property. Your property? Mom, we've been partners in that house for 8 years. You can't just pull the rug out from under us. Partners? That was a new story. When did we become partners, Marcus? I don't remember signing any partnership agreements or being consulted about the second mortgage. Silence. Then, defensively. I was protecting your interests. The business needed capital, and using the house as collateral was the most efficient way to secure funding. Protecting my interests by borrowing $80,000 without my knowledge? You gave me power of attorney. It's perfectly legal. Legal and ethical aren't the same, I said. Another silence, longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice hardened. His business voice, not his son voice. Mom, you need to be careful how you handle this. If you force us to sell, Tyler loses his childhood home. Jennifer loses the kitchen she spent years perfecting. I lose the office where I built my business. Is that what you want? There it was, the subtle threat that if I pursued this, I'd be the villain, the selfish old woman who valued money over family. What I want, I said quietly, is the truth. How long have you been using my house to secure loans without telling me? It's not like that. How long? A pause. 3 years. But Mom, everything I borrowed was invested back into the business. It's not like I spent it on vacations or jewelry. You spent it paying off credit cards and buying Jennifer's car. Silence. He hadn't expected me to know that. Who told you? He asked finally. I thought of Tyler, of the courage it took to bring me those documents. I wasn't throwing him to his father's anger. Does it matter who told me? Is it true? The business loan covered multiple expenses. Yes or no, Marcus? Did you use money borrowed against my house to pay personal debts? A long pause. Some of it, yes. But we were planning to pay it back. When? In what universe were you going to repay $80,000 while living beyond your means? We're not living beyond. You borrowed against my house to pay credit cards. That is the definition. I could hear him breathing, no doubt pacing in what used to be my kitchen, searching for an angle that made him look reasonable. Mom, he said finally, you're angry. We can work this out. We don't need lawyers and threats. We're family. Family doesn't steal from each other, Marcus. I didn't steal anything. The house is still there. It's increasing in value. You still have a place to live. I have a place to live that I chose, I said. And as for the house, what happens if your business fails? If you can't make the payments? Do I lose my home because you gambled with my equity? The business isn't going to fail. Famous last words, I said gently. He was quiet so long I wondered if he'd hung up. What do you want, Mom? What will it take to make this go away? Make this go away. Like my legitimate fury about being defrauded was a negotiating point. I want full repayment of all unauthorized loans tied to my property. I want the power of attorney revoked, and I want an apology that acknowledges what you did was wrong. I can't pay back $80,000 overnight. Then you'll have to sell the house. Mom, please, think about Tyler. Think about what this will do to him. I thought about Tyler, the only one who faced the truth. Tyler, who said he was tired of their lies. I am thinking about Tyler, I said. About what example you're setting. About what he's learning regarding honesty and how you treat the people you claim to love. You're really going to destroy your own family over money? And there it was, the final insult. After 8 years of exploitation, after discovering my son stole from me while pretending to care, he had the gall to suggest I was the one destroying the family. I'm not destroying anything, I said. I'm finally refusing to pretend that what you built on lies and theft is worth preserving. I hung up and turned off my phone. Outside, Lexington was waking. People heading to honest jobs, living within their means, treating their family with respect. Tomorrow, Patricia would start the formal process to recover my stolen equity. Marcus and Jennifer would have 30 days to pay or list the house. For the first time in 8 years, I would sleep in a bed I owned free and clear, in a home no one could take from me. The call came from Tyler 2 weeks later, his voice carefully controlled. Grandma, they're selling the house. Mom's been packing, crying over every box. Dad's locked in his office calling real estate agents. How are you handling it, sweetheart? A long breath. I'm angry. But I'm sad, too. I know what they did was wrong, but it's hard watching everything fall apart. I understood. He was grieving, not just the house, but the idea of his parents as people who could be trusted. Tyler, this isn't your fault, and it isn't really mine. These are the consequences of choices your parents made over several years. I know that logically, he said. It still feels like our family is breaking. Maybe, I said gently, it needed to break. Maybe what you had wasn't as solid as it looked. 3 days later, Marcus called me for the last time. The house sold, he said, without preamble. We got asking price. After paying off both mortgages and the fees, there's about $40,000 left. Good. I assume Patricia will receive a check for the full amount. Mom, his voice broke. I never meant for it to end like this. I thought I was making smart decisions. I thought I was protecting everyone. You thought you could handle my money better than I could? I thought you'd never need to know. I planned to pay it back before you found out, because I thought you'd always be living with us, so it wouldn't matter whose name was on the documents. There it was, the assumption under everything, that I would always be available, dependent, and too grateful to ask hard questions. Marcus, I said, where are you and Jennifer going to live? We found a rental across town, smaller, older, but it's what we can afford, now that we're actually living within our means, and Tyler's staying in the dorms next year instead of commuting, says it's time he learned to be independent. Smart kid, I said. He'd learned from their mistakes, even if they hadn't. Mom, I know you don't want to hear this, but Jennifer and I are in counseling, financial, and marriage. We're trying to figure out how we got so far off track. That's good, I said. I hope it helps. The counselor says we created a pattern. We used other people to avoid facing our problems. We used you to manage the household so we didn't have to communicate. We used your house as financial security so we didn't have to live within a budget. It was the most honest thing he'd said to me in years. What did you learn from that insight? That we've been terrible to you for a long time, and we called it love. Tears pricked my eyes, not sadness exactly, relief that my son might finally understand. Marcus, do you remember when you were 14 and your father was dying? How I told you that love without respect isn't really love? I remember. You and Jennifer cared about me, but you didn't respect me. You didn't respect my autonomy, my intelligence, or my right to make decisions about my own life and assets. That's not love, son. That's possession. I know that now. We were quiet. I heard Jennifer in the background, likely listening. Mom, Marcus said finally, is there any chance you could forgive us? Not now, maybe not for a long time, but eventually? I've already forgiven you, Marcus, I said. But forgiveness isn't the same as trust, and it doesn't mean going back to how things were. What does it mean? It means I hope you learn to be better people. I hope you build a marriage on honesty instead of shared irresponsibility. And I hope Tyler learns from your mistakes. 6 months later, a graduation announcement arrived in the mail. Tyler Walsh, Bachelor of Business Administration, summa cum laude. The return address was a rental across town from my former home. I drove to Columbus for the ceremony, sitting in the back where I could watch my grandson cross the stage. He looked confident, mature, ready to build a life on his own terms. Afterward, Tyler found me in the crowd. Grandma, you came. I wouldn't miss it. He hugged me properly. No reservation, no agenda. Will you come to dinner? Mom and Dad are taking me out, and they specifically asked me to invite you. Across the parking lot, Marcus and Jennifer stood next to an older, modest car, waiting to see what I'd decide. They looked different, less polished, less certain, but maybe more real. I'll come, I said, but I'll drive myself. Over pasta at a family restaurant nothing like Chat Laurent, We talked about Tyler's job prospects, his girlfriend's vet school applications, his plans. Marcus and Jennifer asked careful questions about my life in Lexington, my volunteer shift at the literacy center, my book club, whether the bakery downstairs still tempted me every morning. It wasn't comfortable exactly, but it was honest. No one pretended we were the family we used to be. No one assumed anything about anyone else's availability or obligations. When I stood to leave, Jennifer walked me to my car. "Eleanor," she said, "I want you to know, losing the house was the best thing that could have happened to us. We've learned to live within our means, to communicate about money, to handle our own responsibilities." "I'm glad," I said. "And Marcus has learned to cook," she added with a small smile. "Badly, but he's learning." "That's progress." She hesitated. "I know we can't undo what we did, but I hope someday you'll want to be part of our lives again, the real version, not the fantasy we were living." "Maybe," I said. "Let's see what kind of people you become." Driving back to Lexington, I thought about second chances and new beginnings. Some relationships can be rebuilt on more honest foundations. Others need to end so better ones can take their place. I had $40,000 in my savings account, a little apartment that smelled like cinnamon rolls every morning, and a life that belonged entirely to me. At 68, I was finally learning who Eleanor Walsh is when she isn't taking care of everyone else. It was, I discovered, exactly who I was meant to be all along. Thanks for listening. If you've ever been through something like this, you're not alone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. Your voice matters.